Hey there, my friends. Welcome. Welcome to my thoughts. I'm sitting at a local park here. It's a park I've never been to. Um, I don't even know what it's called. It's actually on the map, it says something, some swim center, but it's got a little park attached with some courts for tennis, which it looks like people are utilizing pretty well here. It looks like a couple of these guys might be practicing some pickleball serves. I'm not sure about pickleball. Maybe it is a pickleball court. Oh yeah, there's no thing in it. Okay, so it's a pickleball and a tennis court. And it's also got some benches and, well, hell, you just take a look for yourself. Okay, a little playground and the courts and all that stuff. A little swim center for the summer. And a nice little creek running through it and everything. Pacific Northwest has a lot of nice parks, and I gotta say that get this thing set up here. As I was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, I have a certain love and passion for this area. And even though I've considered moving, it's like if it doesn't have trees, if I can't go up and hug a giant tree, I don't know if I'd really want to live there. But, that's just me. At any rate, here I am. The reason I'm here is because it's about 8 minutes from my work, and I decided to sit here on my way home because it's an hour and 15 minutes in traffic to get back to my house. So spending about 2 hours a day in traffic, yeah, it wears on me. I've mentioned that. I'm not going to go into detail, but it got me thinking about just this, the mundane nature of day-to-day life. Like, for example, we have these construction workers over here picking up the signs at the end of their day, probably. And it was the road crew or doing some sort of, water line work or something. And you just think about all the different parts that it takes, which need to integrate properly in order to make a society function. And I'm not going to say often we take it for granted. It's more like always we take it for granted. We go about our day, we might complain about this or that, and be happy about this or that, and just, the day ends and it's just another day, and we fail to realize just how much this tapestry is woven with every person out there. The truckers on the road, bringing the food to the very store that you're going to be stopping at after work. The guys who are repairing the road that you're going to be driving on later to get rid of that pothole that would have blown your tire. And all of this said, part of me is very cynical about it. I've mentioned it before, and I'm not shy about the fact that I believe progress is killing us. The fact that we always need to progress towards something more and more and build something better. But over the years, I've really come to understand it as human nature. The human nature is to innovate. The amazing complexity of the things that we've managed to create and invent. Things like, for example, nuclear power. Everything that goes into learning how to split the atom, learning how to properly utilize it, the centrifuges needed to spin out the uranium to get it up to the proper, whatever that shit is. It's extremely time consuming and complicated over I would say, decades, but really over millennia, as our, ancestors faced many of the same issues. They were trying to innovate and create easier ways to live. And this isn't really video isn't really about the things we've created or technology itself, but rather how we have so much in front of us, so much access to everything now, that I think it's killing us mentally. I think that it's the struggle in life that really makes life worth living. And so those who struggle, and I'm not talking about being dirt poor, not being able to afford your food. There are many problems in society amongst people who can't afford to eat right, people who can't afford to go to the doctor, myself included, with no insurance. I can't go to the doctor without spending $1,000, so I don't go. I have dental work to get done. All these things aside, I don't sit and dwell on it. I realized that if it was really a priority, I could figure out a way to do it. And the society that we've created is doing its best to, I guess, kind of foster all of us and create an environment where we can all flourish if we choose. But that's just the section of society that has to do with, society itself. This three-dimensional reality, living, right? Living this life. And then there's a whole other side of it. A whole different side to life. The spiritual side, if you will, for lack of a better term. This idea that behind the scenes there's something greater than us. And I know many out there believe in a specific God. Perhaps you're a Christian who believes the Bible verbatim. Perhaps you're a Christian who believes the Bible metaphorically. Perhaps you're a Muslim. Perhaps you're a Buddhist. It doesn't really matter what you believe. It's about how you believe it. That's my firm belief. I mean, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. The Crusades, after what was seen was being done by the Pope, actually condemned the Crusades, but the Crusaders believed that they were so pious that it was important for them to go out and kill everyone else and make sure that, you either believe or die. And so there is a dark side to religion that is always discussed. But the positive side to it is believing in something greater. And the only way to obtain any type of an understanding about that greater nature of life is to have faith. And that faith is very dependent upon the experiences we've had. If your life has been complete misery and nothing good has ever happened to you, and you've never seen anything beyond this 3D reality, then you're likely to believe that that's all there is. If you've had an extremely psychedelic or spiritual awakening experience, whatever it might be, that has shown you the light, that there's something greater. It's very hard to dispel that. However, here you are, a person who's stuck with seeing and understanding things that you can't explain in words, and trying to convince others that it's a valid belief or a valid thought. In other words, I guess being a witness, in a way. I consider myself a witness. I don't like to go that far and use that. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, don't get me wrong. I'm a witness to the fact that there is a higher power than us, a higher energy that doesn't just oversee or sit in the clouds, but rather we are part of the whole, if you will. I don't understand how it operates. It runs on many different factors, like, many different levels, rather, layers. Perhaps there's a, smaller gods and larger gods. I don't know how any of this works, but the term God is so tainted that people don't even want to use it. And I understand that, because for years I hated the word. But in order to relate to anybody else on that level, you have to be able to use it. I guess it comes down to, does your God care about what you think? Does your God care about whether you die? Probably not. That's up to us. In other words, there are many people who are great children who die when they're young, and many horrible thieves and abusers who live to be, ripe old age and extremely happy. Well, at least according to what society would think of them as happy. There is no instant karma within this lifetime that's going to punish the bad people. And this is why we created things like hell. And I do not believe in hell. If there is a hell, I've been there in my own mind, and therefore I know it could only get so bad. Yeah, I've seen some really bold attempts to address what hell might be like. Being skinned alive every day for the rest of your life. What's a day in hell, I guess, but reliving your past over and over, reliving your worst moments over and over. Fine, whatever, bring it on. It is what it is. It just isn't conducive with the way I see the universe. That there's a place of punishment for eternity for this short little blip in history. But I guess to a person who thinks that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, that might take on a different importance, right? So I've had some epiphanies. And these epiphanies always slip my mind. And that's what this video was really going to be about. The idea that I've seen things that convince me and show me that there's more to this world than just living and dying. In fact, when I was younger, being, I guess people would consider me an atheist, I always was told I was agnostic, and it was kind of a show me the money thing. Show me something's true and I'll look into it. But I haven't been convinced so far of anyone else's God. But I do believe that there is a greater force, and I've experienced this force, connected and discussed with this force, and I have been given information that can help me in my life. Now here's where it gets funny. Was it really something outside of myself? Or was it something in my subconscious that I already knew? There are certain states of mind that I've been in where the information just flows, where I am completely aware of what's important in life, in my mind, but let's just say externally I can't function. There are two parts of the brain, and I'm not talking about the hemispheres and left and right brain. This is something I haven't been able to define, and it's going to be difficult to explain. This is why psychedelics have been such a mainstay for so many people for millennia, because they have always allowed people to see the side of their brain that they ordinarily can't access. It shuts down the the frontal cortex and basically your reasoning skills, and allows you to, but that's kind of a misnomer, the idea of reasoning, because it's more like the default mode network, the DMN, shuts down in your mind, and this is the part that allows you to go to work and get things done in your daily life. And when you're in this headspace, it's amazing. There's part of you that says, why do we live this stupid, boring, mundane life when there's so much more that could be experienced? And it takes a long time to understand why. And when people say, well, we're just kind of trying out being human, there's more to that. I lend more credibility to that than it might sound, or that many people might not take that idea very seriously, that the universe just wanted to try out 3D humans to see how this worked, and we evolved over millions of years. in the history of the universe, it's a blink of an eye. Millions of years is nothing. It's such a tiny amount of evolution compared to the full evolution of everything around us. And when we're living our day-to-day life, and then we have an experience that brings forth all these ideas that we know in our heart, it really feels like they come from somewhere else. It's almost like automatic writing, where you're like, I didn't know that I knew this, and you start to question whether or not the universe is conscious and aware and it's feeding you information, or if you are using your brain as like an antenna that picks up ideas when you're in certain frames of mind, or where you can access certain knowledge at certain times. I think a lot of it is shutting down your reasoning in order to be able to better function with the reasons, what's important in life. And that's subjective, of course, but I look around and see so many people who seem unhappy. They can't smile. They put on a plastic smile. They fake it. And I ask myself, am I doing the same thing? I'm not. I actually love life. Yeah, it's hard to get up at fucking, 6 in the morning. It's hard to go to work. It's hard to deal with raising kids and paying bills and all the shit that we have to do. But it's a challenge that is worth pursuing. And it's worth doing the best that we can, since it's all that we have while we're here. And I don't know, I've wrestled with many of these occult books and studies and stories that I've read, many different philosophies from philosophers from ancient, 2,000 years ago, all the way up to modern day philosophers, everyone from Socrates to Alan Watts. I've listened to everybody's opinions and ideas, and I've just been ruminating on them for probably 10 years now, since I really got into specific philosophies. I thought I was smarter than I was when I was in my 30s, but the more knowledge I gain, I was afraid that maybe the more information I pursue, the less faith I would have in those things which are outside of me, the spiritual nature of the world. During, like, say, the 2010s, my channel, I talked a lot about spirituality, the occult. I was into even things like, the pyramids, ancient knowledge, ancient aliens, whatever it might be. But I was always super sus about certain things, like, okay, a person's making this claim, is it true? For example, afterlives, or, do we reincarnate? These kinds of things. And I've had many discussions with people who seem very cocksure about what they believe. They say, oh, we absolutely do. We reincarnate. After we die, we choose our lives and this, and they lay it all out. And I say, how do you know this? I say, well, it's just because it's in this practice, or I read it in this book. Imagine all the books you didn't read that might have a totally different aspect. And then you start doing the numbers of people on the earth compared to the amount of souls that would need to reincarnate, and the math doesn't add up, and you start asking too many questions, and then people are like, shh. Just believe. And that's something, I guess, the myth that I'm trying to dispel is the myth that you have to believe in a specific God in order to find that solace, find that comfort. You don't. You do not. You don't have to believe in anyone else's version of truth. All you have to do is find something that works for you and really embrace it. Dig in and say, wow, this is interesting. And if you find something that changes your mind about an aspect of what you believe, go with it. Don't try to hang on and just ignore knowledge. That's by definition ignorance. I mean, being unaware of things that we really need to be. For me, let's just say this. I'm happy with the mysteries of not knowing the full breadth of existence, or even part of it, why we're here, what we're here to do. And I've considered whether, if I was offered answers to any questions, what would I ask? In other words, if God came down and said, what do you want to know? What would I want to know? I guess the only answer that I've come up with, the only question I've come up with is there anything specifically that I should be doing in this life that I'm not doing? Because, of course, if there are things that we're required to do, I'd like to do them, because I know that they'd be more fulfilling. But I think I already know the answer to that. Be a good parent, be a good husband, be a good friend, be a good person, Do the best we can. It doesn't matter whether you earn a lot or a little of money. Money is not the defining factor of who we are, nor is stuff. Wealth is just wealth. And wealth can be health. And in my opinion, health is wealth. The healthier your mind is, the more wealthy you truly are inside. So it comes down to this. Regardless of what you believe or don't believe, when you come home at the end of the day, how do you feel? I mean, not just exhausted or tired from work, that kind of thing, but do you feel like the world sucks? Or do you just feel like you're just doing your part? How do you feel in the morning? Of course you're tired. Of course you don't want to go to work. But can you put a smile on? Can you crack a joke? Our demeanor is everything. Not just to us, but to those around us. Our family and friends who depend on us. They expect us to be happy. I try to put on a damn good act, but I realize that the act I put on is good. It's real. I mean, it's true. I guess maybe I ask too many questions and think a little too much about things that don't matter as much. But that's what philosophers do. So that's my philosophy for the day. Do what you do. Ask a lot of questions and be okay with the answers, and be okay if you don't get the answers. And realize that there are certain things that not only can you not understand, but there are certain things that you may understand but not be able to express to other humans in language. This is a big one. For me, I don't know how many of you have had this experience, but you have this realization that you cannot find the words for. And you struggle and you try. Sometimes when I'm really deep in a meditative type state, I'll find this, oh my God moment. It's like this epiphany. They call it a satori in Buddhism. Call it a satori, epiphany, whatever it might be. it's an oh shit moment. Like, what? I totally understand this fact about life, and this is something that's really going to help me and others. And then it's just gone. It's like the blown in the wind, man. And this has happened to me so many times. At first I got frustrated and I started bringing a voice recorder. Like when I would be doing mental searching, I don't want to get into the details, but I'd have a voice recorder where I could record my thoughts, and I still just couldn't find the words for it. And a few have come through, but then when upon analysis they become obvious as things that we already all know or should know. I guess maybe things I already know, but I should still share. But these things about family, connections, friends, how they're everything. All that matters in this life is our connections and relationships. All that matters in this life is our relationships. I will say that again, and I stand by it. You know, that's not just something I'm just spouting off. Everything comes down to who we connect with. Of course, we need food, water, shelter. These things are pretty easy to come by. You know, most people can survive unless you're totally starving. But even if you're totally starving, friends, family, and connections are still the most important thing, because they're the ones who are going to help you out, and you're going to help them out in times of need. It's about who do you connect with, and how do you treat people. I don't understand how some people out there can treat others like shit, but I realized after understanding a little bit about psychology that it comes down to being insecure inside. Those who pick on others, make fun of others, it's their own insecurity. And it really shines through in a lot of folks. Once you realize this, it ceases to bother you when people push your buttons. Now, don't get me wrong, when people push my buttons or call me out, I definitely respond and say what I have to say. But it's not because I'm angry inside. It's because I feel I have the right to respond. But beyond that, I'm not going to waste my time with some random person on the internet who has an opinion. There's way too much of that out there. But, you know, I just want to navigate this life and spend the last few decades I have with those I love and build good things. And I hope you do too. And that's all I got for today. I'll see y'all next time. Be well. Take care of each other. Much love.